Hi everybody, my name is Sean O'Kane and welcome to another episode of Chip Estimate TV. My guest today is the editor-in-chief of Chip Design and Embedded Intel magazines, and of course the author of the IP Insider blog that can be seen and read on ChipEstimate.com every week. Mr. John Blyler right here, coming to us from beautiful Portland.
Thank you, Sean. Yes.
Yeah.
It's nighttime here.
It is. But hey, I just want to get right to it. What's new and exciting in the world of IP and semiconductors and fabs? Anything?
Excellent. No, nothing at all. Well, the 2011 ended. There were a couple conferences. One was the Semi-ISS show. And in that, there was some mention of the very semiconductor industry is very cyclic, and we may be going through a downturn this year. However, it looks like that is being moved off maybe to 2013. So, you know, some good, bad news there, but some very good news I'd like to remind folks is that here in the North America, certainly in the U.S., there are two major fabs coming in that are going to be good for economies, good for our industry. One is the Global Foundries Fab 8 that's going up in the New York Tech Valley, and that's going to be a 22 nanometer and below. They may actually have pre-production runs this year, 2012, and then full production 2013. Intel has a big fab that's going in, a D1X in my neck of the woods out by Hillsboro. That also is going to be a 22 and below 14 nanometer fab. And there was just mention recently of the one in Chandler that's going to be a full production facility as well. So some rocky starts, but some good news.
Yeah, very, very good news. So ChipEstimate.com opened up a new IP portal in Japan in 2011, and soon to be a IP portal in China. So the Asian semiconductor intellectual property market is growing. Question is, are they bringing something new and innovative as far as IP to the market?
One would certainly think so. This will be a unique chance to begin to see some of the innovation coming out of Asia, out of China, in terms of IP. And it certainly is growing. Technavio last year indicated very significant growth of Asian IP. That's great. The challenging part is going to be our old friend IP, protecting the IP in a global sense. So here, Asia has certainly made inroads, but the challenge is so great that actually some analysts have suggested the reason there are not quite as many fabs opening in China as were expected is because of this open issue of IP protection. The laws not being as good as they should be.
Well, that's great. You had mentioned in one of your blogs that the semiconductor IP was once the hallmark of innovation and now has become a shield against patent trolls. Now, actually, this sounds like a new reality show, IP Patent Wars on A&E. So my question is, what's going on with all these so-called IP patent wars, and what are the reasons this is happening? Who's driving this?
Okay, well, that'd be a show I'd watch. So if IP is indeed the shield, and there's evidence that it's a good shield, you still need more than just a shield. Otherwise, you have a bunch of people just clubbing one another. So you need a sword in there, and I believe that integration is going to be that sword. And I would like to cite the Google Motorola issue that's going on. So Google bought 17,000 patents from Motorola from their handset side, the mobility side, with the idea of being a shield. It appears that will work, but their last quarter earnings weren't fantastic, and there's some issues with, of course, Android has its own patent issues going on, much to Microsoft's happiness, I guess. However, my point is that many have speculated that this Google purchase of the handset IP is going to signal a tighter integration between hardware and software design. The hardware design for the handset and an Android software system. So much like, you know, Apple's iPhone. And that's going to be a real product differentiator if that is the intention, and we'll probably get a glimpse of that later this year. So, IP as a shield, and I would say integration, which you might even call the new innovation, as the sword.
Yeah. Intel and ARM seem to be like one-upping each other and continue to cross into each other's markets. Is this competition a good thing?
Well, being a capitalist, I guess I'd say yes.
Yeah.
And it gives us writers and editors something to talk about. There are some interesting things going on there, and let me just point to one of those. IP needs an ecosystem. The complexity of the SoC almost demands it. And ARM has a very good ecosystem. And what do you need for an ecosystem? Well, you need to have some sort of IP that can be used, third party and whatnot, but you also need a way to connect it. Now, Intel has been developing their IP ecosystem, I would say mainly through a lot of the acquisitions they've made recently. Infineon on the wireless side, Silicon Hive for DSPs, and there was an Ethernet cable modem company in there too, Fulcrum I think it was. So they have an ecosystem that they've talked about last year in 2011, and they've also talked about the second part of that, how to connect it, how to get all this IP working together. Mm-hmm. And that's their, the Intel on-chip system fabric. So haven't heard too much more about it. Looking forward to hearing more in 2012. So that's just one aspect of this, an IP aspect, if you will, of the ARM right. Intel exchange, which I'm sure will be more interesting this year as well.
Many consumer electronics are becoming more feature-rich in audio and video, like Qualcomm, for example. And are they looking more towards the IP developers to help supply this IP for these design trends?
Yes, certainly. And again, there you have Qualcomm, excuse me, purchasing the gesture recognition technology and just recently display technology. Mm-hmm. This is going to drive, I think, IP in some interesting ways. You're going to see more of an emphasis on MEMS and analog. So these are also very sensor-rich plays, if you will. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have IP that plays a part in that. Now this sensor technology is going to, I think, change the landscape in interesting ways. People are starting to talk about non-traditional design techniques for the engineer, where you have user experience design. And so there's going to be, I'm not sure I'd call it social media, but there's going to be a social user aspect to all this that will have to be inflected in the IP in some way.
Really? Hey, just to digress a little bit, there was a song in the 60s from Buffalo Springfield, and it went like this, something's happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. And you had mentioned in your IP Insider and in the blog recently that there was something happening in the semiconductor, in the world of the semiconductor IP. What is that something?
What is that?
Now you got my attention.
Well, I suppose I should put it to lyric, but that something is, it's the message that you've heard before. IP, SoC design is complex. There's going to be more and more IP. There's going to have to be subsystem IP and all this, and it's going to move into interesting markets. So let me just suggest one kind of off-the-cuff example that might appeal to some folks. Qualcomm at CES kind of reiterated, kind of stepped up their X project competition. And this competition was to essentially design a Star Trek medical tricorder. Very few constraints in this, but one was that it had to weigh no more than 5 pounds. So this would be a device that would be sensor-rich. It would detect like 15 different common diseases and ailments, and it could be no more than 5 pounds. This is an example, I think, of some of the new directions we're going to see. Mm-hmm. To accomplish this, you're going to have tight hardware-software integration. You're going to have a system on chip that is just packed with features. You're going to have interconnects to sensors. So what's happening is that IP is maturing and it's beginning to move out into other areas. So it should be some interesting times.
Great. It is. It sounds very exciting. Now, talking about exciting, there's been some really cool things happening in the world of semiconductor, electronic, and biotech. Why is this type of collaboration exciting?
So now this is a little bit different angle, and let me step back a little bit and note that the EDA community, the designers of the tools that make the chips, and of which IP, of course, plays an enormous part, has been using the solutions that they've developed over the last 20, 30, 40 years for chip design and starting to apply them to various vertical markets, medical, industrial, automotive, even entertainment, if you will. So what this means is that I wish I could remember what it means. What it means is that, so these solutions are being applied, for example, to the medical space.
Right.
That's coming together with the medical community, which is beginning to say, you know, we can model cells like transistors, but we don't understand transistors very well. We understand chemical reactions in biology. So the two groups are trying to meet somewhere in the middle, and I think once they really begin to hook up, we're in for a whole new world.
Wow.
Silicon, carbon transistors, cells that are computers. It should be very interesting.
It is. Well, listen, thank you very much for joining us today here in beautiful Portland. As we can see, it's nighttime. And
I need an umbrella.
Yeah. But thank you very much for joining us today. Once again, John Blyler, Editor-in-Chief of Chip Design and Embedded Intel magazines, and of course, the author of IP Insider, the blog that appears on ChipEstimate.com every week. Thank you very much for joining us. And John, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Excellent.
On Chip Estimate TV.
Thanks.